Gordon Dalgleish again today. Delighted to have with me Neil Hampton, General Manager of Royal Dornoch. Welcome, Neil. Thank you for finding some time this morning.
Thank you, Gordon, for the invitation. I'm very much looking forward to this. I think what you've started here is an excellent little series, and it's been great to watch some of the people you've interviewed. So I'll be very honoured to be a part of it.
Well, I appreciate that. You know, so many of our travellers, you know, come to a great golf course like Royal Dornoch, experience the 18 holes, some hospitality in the clubhouse, but maybe don't always have the benefit of understanding the nuances of why something is the way it is, or a hole's designed the way it is, or just some of the history and the fabric of the club. So hopefully we can kind of delve into some of that today and let you explain it. So first thing, I'm always curious about background, how somebody get involved in the great game of golf. I think you came from a golfing background. So can you just share it's probably similar. I didn't come from a golfing family per se until my brother and I started playing the game. I think you had deeper roots than that growing up in Scotland.
Yes, Gordon, thanks for asking. It's my background is very much in the game, and my parents, my grandparents, everybody, you know, played the game, and I'm very lucky to say that I was born and came from Fife. So the hotbed, the heartland of the game itself. Although I didn't stay there for very long after I was born, I tell everyone I'm a Fifer and glad to be part of it. But the whole family was in the game, and I'm very proud to say through our research that my father turns out to be the last man in Scotland who was both a professional at the club and also the greenkeeper. You're like me, slightly more advanced in years, so you remember when many clubs had a small team of men and lots of multitasking. So my dad was a pro, he was the professional, he was a greenkeeper. My mother worked in the shop, she ran it Monday to Friday, Dad did weekends, Dad coached at night. So as far as I can remember, Gordon, golf's been my game. There's a picture of me as a 3-year-old with a pencil bag over my shoulder, 3 clubs in the bag, dragging along the ground as I ran along the fairway. So it seemed a bit of destiny that I would come this far, and whether I played the game or I did the administration, it's great to be involved in it. And the happiest day possibly of my life, but certainly one of my father's, was towards the end of his life. I got the job at Royal Dornoch here. He was getting towards the end of his life, and I started on the 1st of September in 2010, and he came up with us on the 31st of August for a little journey up, because I was getting a wee bit of an induction and meeting people and getting to know the place. And he sat outside in the front benches, as you know where they are, and spoke to people going past. And he said to me afterwards, because he only died 2 or 3 months later, that was the proudest day of his life, where his son started the job at Royal Dornoch. So from golf all the way through, from my beginning to his end, it's been something in the Hampton family.
That's terrific. Fond memories, I'm sure, from growing up and spending time with your father and playing some golf along the way. That's terrific. So I was speaking to, and we were chatting about it a bit before, Wilma Erskine at Royal Portrush, and in fact, from a tourism standpoint, I think that there's probably a somewhat analogous between Portrush's experience and Dornoch's experience. When we started in 1984 in business, and Portrush, I mean, she described how in that time period it was challenging, shall we say. Royal Dornoch, as you know, I think I was trying to figure out when Dornoch started to get onto the radar screen of being a significant golf, or getting the recognition it should. And I think we can trace it back to maybe the 1980 era. Maybe Mr. McCormick, who was a friend of ours, and Tom Watson and Sandy Tatum made a visit and kind of started that climb of recognizing Dornoch as being what it is.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent thing you're saying there, Gordon, about what happened back then, and we'll move on to discuss the logistics of Dornoch and how we now get people here. But certainly back then in 81 was when Watson visited with Sandy Tatum, but we should never forget that 2 years before that, Ben Crenshaw came up for a game. And he was playing the Open Championship at the time, and he came up for a game, and he went back down, and they said, well, what do you think of Royal Dornoch? He said, you guys are really, really lucky that I actually came back, you know, because he found Dornoch so good, and he's been an honorary member since then. But Watson's, I wouldn't say the more famous one, but his trip back in 1981, starting in the south of Ireland, working his way through Ireland to the north, crossing over to Scotland, working south to north in Scotland, really teaching it, getting taught, should I say, how links golf was, because at that time he said to Sandy Tatum, I just don't get it. So Sandy Tatum took him on this tour, and the last place he played was Royal Dornoch, and that's where he came out with the famous phrase of, it's the most fun he's ever had in a golf course. So we thank Tom for that a lot, and he's come back to visit and mention it several times.
And when you think about Dornoch back in the early 80s, to get even from Inverness up to Dornoch, the bridge wasn't there. I remember the first time I visited was probably, in 84, and did you have to go up to Bonner Bridge and work your way up? And it was quite an exercise. And so for these guys to turn up.
Yeah, I think the point you make is great. Again, reflecting on our maturity in years, I remember when there was no bridges that took you from Inverness across the Firths all the way to Dornoch. We now have 3 bridges. The Cromarty Bridge in 79, the Keswick Bridge in 82, and the Dornoch Bridge itself, the final one in 91. So before, in the 70s and before, if you're coming by car, it was 2.5 hours or so from Inverness to Dornoch. Now it's, as you know, Gordon, 45 minutes. So it really does open it up logistically wise for people to access it. So these things are, when I discuss like we're doing just now, a bit of history, it's trying to get people to understand Dornoch was always the best golf course in the world, is now still the best, but one that people can get to.
Yes. 85, the British Amateur, Jose Maria Olazabal, right? So, I mean, back in 85, that was quite a step for the RNA to come that far north. And I mean, in terms of your profile, I mean, realistically, it's the farthest north significant golf course that exists in the world. I mean, if you had to, what would be your closest brethren or sister of a significant golf course? Any thoughts?
Well, we often talk about this. We're on the same latitude as Moscow, but we don't get the snow, and we're slightly further north than New York, and we don't get the heat that they do in the summertime. So we're the best of all worlds. But yes, I mean, I think if you get to maybe Cabot Links or something now that's that far north, is maybe of the pedigree. Not that I've ever played it, but yeah, we're in that kind of realm in the latitude stakes. But yeah, going back to the amateur championship in '85, our great friend Garth McKinsey won it. And Olazabal, he shot 86, I think, around Gosby in the wind and the snow, and then shot 66 around Dornoch to make the cut. So he did very well. But I think just before that, and your brother may have more memory of this, back in 1980, we had the men's home internationals. And Colin may well have been on the team that came to Dornoch then. So we did a little trial run of hosting a major amateur event. So to have the amateur in 85, I think, was a nice little payback from the RNA. And as you know, we're looking to host more events with the RNA in the future.
That's terrific. So some changes, obviously, number 7, big change there. I was listening to a prior interview you had, and it was about how the original routing came to be, or the rumors in town are, and I'd love for you to tell that story because I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, the 18 holes itself, can't really hang its hat on any one designer that came from 100 years ago. It started as a 9-hole course. Old Tom Morris added another 9. A couple of holes were put in between times, but it wasn't until the Second World War that really the big changes came about. For those that, like yourself, Gordon, know the course, we used to go out to the 6th hole in the championship course, turn around and come back down number 12. That was the routing up until the Second World War, with the finishing holes going down on our Struy course. During the Second World War, our Struy course, where some of the holes was quite a flat area, and so that was used as a holding area for aircraft for the Second World War, because just across the Firth, Tain had an RAF base. So at the end of the war, when all the planes had gone, the government gave us some compensation for the mess they'd made. And a very smart man called Mr. Mackay, popular name around here, he was our greenkeeper, and he said, well, why rebuild what we've got? Can we make it better? So they invited George Duncan, Open champion, to come up, and he looked at the far end of the course, past holes number 6, and said, look, there's a kind of raised beach up here, there's a bit of elevation change. I think if we peg out some holes here, we can make something better. And so he came up on the train as he did. And back in those days, it was the bamboo canes, and he pegged them down the middle of the fairway and said, build a hole here and put a green there and a tee there. So he did that, and off he went. And so that's where we get these 5 holes from now. But what happened was he could see, he had a good eye, and he could see that the raised beach element taking us up to the top of the hill, where number 7 is now, playing with a beautiful view. So he said, we'll run it along the edge of the escarpment there. That'll make a beautiful hole, beautiful views. And the story goes in the town, and nobody's disproved it to me yet, that in the middle of the night, after Mr. Duncan had left, all the young ne'er-do-wells came out and had a look and said, that'd be far too difficult a hole with the big drop on the right-hand side. So they moved all the canes inland just that little bit more, just to make it a bit safer.
That's funny. That is a terrific story. And so the golf course has evolved over the years. And any holes in particular that are your favorites?
The great conversation we have in the bar, Gordon, about what's your favorite hole, or your least worst hole, or something that appeals to you. And as an older golfer now, and having competed a little bit, it used to be the thrill of making birdies and pars and things. Now it's the thrill of the design of each hole. Yeah. I find it I find at Dornoch that I can't wait to get onto the next hole. I think the flow of what comes next, whether it's a par 3 or the par 4 or just a 2 par 5s, I think that nature has given us a great flow of short par 4s, long par 4s, 4 of the greatest par 3s in the world. But the way I describe the flow of the course is that, and not that the 6th hole is my least favourite or I want to look forward to. The way I describe it is you come through from the second green, you come to the 30, and everything opens in front of you. Yep. In the far distance, you can see hole number 6. So you stand in the 3rd and play the 3rd. You stand in the 4th tee, you can still see hole number 6. Yep. You stand in the 5th tee, play the 5th hole, you can see hole number 6. And finally you get to number 6. And for me, it's one of the hardest par 3s if you hit an imperfect shot. You know, it's got the big slope on the left-hand side, the bunkers, a big drop off the right-hand side, and at the back, you know, the two deep cavernous bunker for it right. It can only be a perfect shot to be in the green. Anything else can be a 5, 6, or a 7, or an 8 or a 9. Yep. So the 6 plays in my mind for 3 or 4 holes before I get there, and that to me is the beauty of the golf course. The way
that you described it reminds me of, in terms of the next hole and what you see, reminds me of a good friend. I'm sure you know Duncan Weir. We were talking about, you know, I've known Duncan for years and years, and we were talking about, you know, any particular golf course, and he kind of grades it based on his enthusiasm as he leaves a green going to the next tee. Yeah. And right, because if you've enjoyed a hole, you're excited about, particularly obviously your first time around, you're excited as to what the next one brings. And that speaks to the heart of what you're talking about with respect to Dornoch.
Very much, Gordon. If I can just interrupt a little bit, I don't get bored by the championship course at Dornoch because I look forward to the next hole. But I was only interrupting to say Duncan Weir's a very good friend of mine too, and his parents and my parents were close friends back in Fife, back in Burnt Island.
Burnt Island, yeah.
So like you, our relation goes back a very long way.
The golf world is intertwined in strange ways, but yeah, Duncan is getting close to retirement. Yeah, hard to believe. But I was his roommate at college at William and Mary. Back in the early 80s before we started all this. So one of the, you know, I mentioned earlier that, you know, visitors can come and they can play Dornoch and enjoy the golf course and the experience. But I think so many people, visitors come, they miss the fabric of the club. And I know that Royal Dornoch is slightly unique. I mean, there's hundreds of golf courses in Scotland that are fundamentally local golf clubs. And they're a fabulous mixing pot of society, from the lawyers and the doctors to the butchers and the bakers and the train drivers. I mean, that was my experience growing up in Helensburgh. And I would assume that Dornoch fundamentally is that for 9 months, 8 months of the year, when your overseas members aren't around, and they come and go. And can you speak to kind of just the fabric of the club and the characters, and, you know, because I think that's one of the things that a lot of visitors just don't truly see and feel.
Yeah, I think we're very unique, Gordon, in what we have here, and the local people understand the requirement and the need, the desire to have visiting golfers come through the season. That helps subsidise the things that go on. Also, not just at the golf club, but in the town itself. There's a lot of industry and service based on what the golf club brings. So everybody understands that. But you're right, it's a great feeling to sit in the bar after your Sunday morning round in the middle of November, and there's a dozen guys there. One's been the ex-sheriff, one's been a president of the club, one's been the local doctor, one's been a dentist, 2 are plumbers, 3 are joiners, you know, one's got his own construction business, one's a labourer, and everybody's sitting there having a beer, having fun, having played golf together. And that doesn't escape throughout the season. And to your point about what makes Dornoch Golf Club and what we offer unique is that we take visiting golfers 7 days a week. And a lot of the feedback I've got from many of your clients, Gordon, is that they enjoy the fact that they've played just before or just after the members. So that when they come into the bar, the members are asking them, what did you think of the golf course? Have you enjoyed it? Are you going to come back? This is your first time. And there's an interaction of feeling like a member for a day. And as you know, in days gone by, that's what it was. A green fee was a temporary membership. So you're welcome into the club to enjoy it. And not just, and I don't want to quote some other golf clubs where they have visitor-only days and member-only days. We are everybody every day.
Yep, yep. And I mean, it also, it speaks to the economic impact on your region. I mean, the significance of Dornoch. If Dornoch wasn't there, or Dornoch didn't take outside play, the economic impact from a tourist standpoint is immense. Obviously, you know, we can touch on Cool Links. I think that with much kind of disappointment, that did not play out because the economic, you know, Dornoch, I won't say it stands alone, but, you know, Dornoch was the first, then, you know, with Nairn to a slightly lesser extent, Castle Stewart comes along, and it's the old rising tide lifts all the boats. And in some respects, you know, I was fortunate to be at Dornoch 3 years ago, I think it was, and spent a lovely 3 days with one of your international members, and he played from the sun up to sundown. It was crazy. It was like 11 o'clock, and he's still coming back in. But, you know, terrific memories. But it's just, you know, it's the more great golf courses, apologies for the bad English, the better golf courses in the region, just it makes it more attractive. People stay longer, the hotels are busier, the restaurants are busier. It's just good for everyone. And it's terribly unfortunate that Cool didn't quite see the light of day.
No, and you'll find that everybody of a golfing persuasion and an economic persuasion around the town would agree with you. And we all felt Cool was a good thing for us. We liked the fact it was Mike Kaiser and Bill Coor that were doing it. These guys understand nature and understand the environment, understand the golfing landscape and how to work with people. So we felt a very good synergy would have been built with Cool Links coming along. You know, and it partners in with us, like you say, that the bigger golf courses lift everybody else. Brora, Gospey, 3 golf courses would benefit completely from that. Our town itself, with the infrastructure we could put into place. And not that we want to take anything away from the rest of Scotland, but it makes Dornoch and East Sutherland a destination in its own right. And building the game of golf, which puts 400 million into the economy in Scotland directly from golf itself, back into what we know. So yeah, we're disappointed. We feel it was given a fair try. You know, somebody has to win, somebody has to lose, and I just feel sorry we don't have somebody of Mike Kaiser's character and capability coming round here now.
Yeah, Mike Kaiser is one of the best. I mean, I was fortunate to play Bandon Dunes. I think we were the first 2 people that played it the day before it officially opened, and there was nobody else on the golf course. I've seen what he's done out there, seen what he's done at Cabot Links. I mean, he is so down in Tasmania. I mean, he's so sensitive too. Is the most understated, and unfortunately, you know, that didn't get across. And you know, but it is what it is. And so, you know, it will. Everybody will survive, but it's just unfortunate. So, come back to Donald Ross. His impact in golf in the United States is just enormous. I was looking through a list the other day of the 400 courses or so that he's been credited with, and I actually didn't realize that Eastlake in Atlanta was one of his original. And obviously, you know, Pinehurst number 2. Have you had a good opportunity over the years to kind of see and play some of the more notable Donald Ross courses?
I haven't played many, to be honest, Gordon. I've played Pinehurst number 2 several times now, but I haven't played many other Donald Ross ones yet, which is my own fault for being in the States several times and not taking the opportunity. But certainly I can see round Pinehurst what he did there, and how he's taken what he found at Dornoch and we found to work at Dornoch, and used that as his inspiration to make fair but challenging golf courses. Golf courses that everyone of any ability can play and still enjoy. And I think the legacy is left for the game in the world, not just in America. Scotland is huge, that we don't have to build monster golf courses or things that are going to tax us to the extreme to get enjoyment from them. That's what I liked about playing Pinehurst number 2. Whatever tees you played off, they were still thrilled, because the game of golf is played round to green, and your ability round to green to make your score.
So the membership, we touched on it just from the local perspective. Your international membership, I think, kind of relatively is quite a large membership by Scottish standards. Can you walk me through how that has kind of evolved over the years? I think from memory, the first club in the British Isles, including Ireland, would be Ballybunion that comes to mind back in the early 80s. I think at the time, the locals thought it was a great idea. It was like a a lifetime international membership for some very nominal sum. And I'm sure some people have more than got their benefit out of it. And then as eventually people figured out that this was a nice way of creating an association with people in other countries, forming some loyalty, and also generating some kind of long-term membership subscriptions. And so you've got that. And I think you work through a STRUI. There's an interim membership. There's some friends going through it. So I'm curious if you can explain.
I think what you're discussing is something that we need to look back into the distant past for to begin with. Because John Sutherland, I wouldn't say my predecessor, because there have been several secretaries between he and I, but he became the secretary in 1883, 6 years after the club started. He was only 19 years of age. Did the job for 58 years. And and through that time, made it what it is and really what we're aspiring to be since he left. He realised at the very early stages that the small town of Dornoch couldn't support a golf club of the size he perceived on local people alone. So he spread the net far and wide. He was writing in the golf journals. He was advising people on golf agronomy. He was playing in major championships. And everywhere he went, he was talking about Dornoch. So back in 1913, I think it was, we had over 100 members that actually lived in London. He was out there selling the golf club, selling the prospect of golf, selling memberships to these people far away back in those times. So what we've not done is changed what he put in place. It's just that the world is a much smaller place now. And people walk off the 18th green here and say, can I join? And we go, of course you can. There's a form, fill it in, off we go. So it is just keeping the door open. And I find it a very unique place, Gordon, where it's a club that's really open to that all the time. So yes, you work through STRUI rather than having a waiting list per se, where your name's on a list and you don't play golf. We have 2 courses. So you can play your second course until you get a chance to upgrade to the full membership. But while you're waiting to upgrade, you still get access to the championship course, albeit on a limited basis. But still, people come every year. Like you said, we've our overseas membership, which almost numbers about 700 now, wow, of the 2,100 members that we have. So it's a fantastic thing. And my day usually is filled with emails from our members overseas saying, how are things? How are you? How's the course looking? I'm missing it so much. Can't wait to see you again.
That was the thing that's kind of really struck me. I've got some friends around here in Wilmington who are members. Is the passion that they have for it. The gentleman I was with was a member at Wingfoot and down at Isleworth in Orlando. And I mean, he very much holds Royal Dornoch at the same level as a rightly he should. But I mean, the passion and the connection that they have, they'll come every year for a couple of weeks, twice in the summer, whatever it might be. And I think that's just a wonderful thing that you've been able to achieve. And I think part of it is the fact that you've got such an all-embracing membership. So when they're there, they feel connected to the club and they're proud to show it off to their friends.
Yeah, and we have the attitude that everybody is the same. There is no tiers of membership. You are a member or you're not. There's not an international, overseas or country or local. It's everybody pays the same. The person that lives in the middle of Dornoch pays the same as the guy that lives in California. Yeah, and we treat everybody the same. There's no special gifts, no special red carpets. Gordon Dalgleish comes, he gets treated the same as everybody else.
Yeah, which is absolutely terrific. We touched on it when we were talking about Cool Links and the impact and the way that it works in that part of the world. In terms of other great courses, you touched on the 3 others, but when you sit back and you look at the kind of economic impact that you've had in the region in the last 10 years, I mean, recognizing that we're kind of climbing out of the recession when you took over, it must make you quite proud when you see restaurants opening up and new hotels, and just kind of the general activity for caddies. And, can you speak to that as to how that has evolved and maybe changed positively and maybe not so positively some of the things you see?
It's very kind of you to say how things have changed, Gordon, and it's in partnership with companies like yourself that we've managed to bring people to Dornoch to play golf. Again, after the recession back in 2008, 2009, we worked hard at our presence and our position in the industry, making sure people were aware that we were open. Marketing was something that the club didn't really do. There was an attitude, well, we are the best, so people will come anyway. So it's creating better links to you, to Perry, to Colin, to the other people in the industry that say, look, we're here for business. We're here to work with you. And so we tried hard at that. And I put myself about in various places to make sure that I was seen. We have our great logo here that people want to take a part in. And so it does help. We did a lot of economic impact assessment for Cool Links because they needed some support. And it's amazing what we put back into the economy in second and third tier that you don't really realise. Somebody did a little calculation on our caddies. We have, upwards of maybe 100 caddies, some part-time, some full-time. And when somebody worked out what that meant to the economy, that there was about £300,000 per year going to these caddies, which we all realised was getting spent locally, mostly in some of the hostelries that we have, yes. but it was recirculated about the time. We're turning over in this business here about £5 million now between memberships and things. But when you multiply the visitor green fee element into the accommodation, transportation, the restaurants and the like, that's a £6 or £7 or £8 million feed back into Dornoch, East Sutherland and the Highlands. So we never underestimate who we are, but we'll never overestimate what we need to work with and who we need to work with. So it's always a giving thing. I always pat my dad on the back when I think about this. It's one of Dad's things was we're here to help you play golf. We're not here to stop you. So if you want to play, Gordon, there's always a way somewhere.
That's a very good and pragmatic way of looking at it. It would be folly not to touch on Andrew Carnegie and his impact in the area when we're talking about Dornoch. First of all, do you subscribe to the microclimate theory that Andrew Carnegie had around the Dornoch Firth and this the 5 miles or so around Skibo Castle and Dornoch, which enjoy this climate that's different from the rest of the region?
Oh, very much, Gordon. I can take you into our first tee here, and we look southwest towards the Struy Hills. You'll see the big black clouds coming over the hills, and they'll split up, and some go down to Tain in the south, and some go up to Gosby and Broad in the north, and we'll still stay dry. It's a lower average rainfall than London, and more hours of sunlight than anywhere else I know of.
That's terrific. So Andrew Carnegie, his impact obviously built Skibo Castle, and Carnegie Shield is played for by the membership at Dornoch, or is it open
Initially by the membership. 16 men played the first one in one day. Andrew Carnegie presented us with this beautiful shield in 1901. Cost £120 back then. As you can imagine, priceless to us now. At some point back in the late 80s, we went up to 320 people playing in the shield. We've now managed to get down to a number we think is the right number. So we have 270 people playing over 7 days to win the Carnegie Shield.
So in your time, you've been very generous with your time this morning. And in closing, any obviously the first visitors, Ben Crenshaw, Tom Watson, put it on the map. I'm sure you've seen a lot of characters over the years, some celebrities. Any that kind of stick in your mind as being they just appreciated the whole experience and were gentlemen or ladies about what they saw at Dornoch?
There's several. We'll get to the golfing ones later on. But Hugh Grant, when he was in his pomp as a Hollywood star, he always went on a golfing holiday with 12 of his buddies, and they came here for one weekend, played their mini Ryder Cup. And I met him on the first tee, and I saw him when we came in. We had a pint in the bar, and he was the most down-to-earth, lovely man in the world. When his name became about that he was here, there were several that our lady visitors and members were keen to meet him. And he couldn't have been nicer to them all. We all went outside, lots of pictures, lots of autographs. So yes, just a gentle human being. And that reflects into one of our members now, Craig Stadler. He came, he played, he says, I want to join. And we had to change the rules so that he could join. Back then, when Craig came about 6 or 7 or 8 years ago, pros weren't allowed to join. So immediately changed the rules so that pros could join. And he sends us this check every year. It follows on to one of the greatest moments I ever had personally was when Jack Nicklaus came in 2014. He arranged his own tee times. He had a little pseudonym that he and I were emailing each other with. And then when he drew up in the Range Rover, he jumped out and I went to say hello. And he says, hi, I'm Jack Nicklaus. And I said, yes, I know. But the most touching thing, which I think maybe some of our younger pros don't reflect on, Gordon, is that we had a wee chat about him playing, getting ready to go, and he'd warmed up at Skibo where he was staying. And I said, well, Mr. Nicklaus, the first tee's yours if you want to play. And he says, okay, that's fine. Where do I pay the green fees? So I said, it's all right, Jack. By then it was Jack. I said, this one's on me. And he said, oh, thank you very much. And off he went. But that's the charm of the man and the humility of the man, that if I'd say, well, you go in a pro shop with your credit card, he would have done that. He was genuinely asking me where he could pay. So I have a nice picture on the wall of he and I, and a nice letter he sent me afterwards. So that's the top of my tree at the moment.
Well, I'm sure these are some wonderful memories that I'm sure you wish you could have shared with your father. But
Yes.
you've got them yourself, and that's terrific. Listen, I really appreciate your time. You're not only a wonderful ambassador for Royal Dornoch, but you're a wonderful ambassador for the north of Scotland and all that has happened there, and telling the story. And I hope that some of our clients and viewers will have the opportunity to come and visit, as it's becoming more accessible with Inverness Airport and having better connections. But it's truly a wonderful part of the world that you live and work in. So again, my sincere thanks for finding some time to share your insights with us. Thanks.
Well, Gordon, it's been my pleasure. I really enjoy talking about golf, and I think it's nice that in this business world we do take time to talk about the game itself. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.